Welcome to Act 2 You're On. Join us weekly at our studio roundtable as Rhonda, Kate, and Linda invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy. Launch your next great act with authenticity and purpose. Summon your courage, superstar, and step into the limelight. So grab a coffee
or a martini
and let's set the stage for a grand entrance. It's Act 2. You're on.
Greetings, friends, and welcome. Welcome. My name is Kate Levy, and I am joined by these wonderful women.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Garvin-Conaway. And I'm Linda Ty, and we are also joined by our very talented producer in the background here, Kathy Carswell.
Friends, I am thrilled to talk to Laura Cohen, certified intuitive eating practitioner and a certified, or very close to it, eating disorder recovery coach. To our listeners, have you ever faced total devastation and had to rebuild? Have you ever experienced how the absolute worst thing can eventually lead to the next great idea? What if your rebuild lost you your career, but in the end it gained you true life mission? Well, friends, this promises to be an absolute axis shift as we hear Laura's amazing third act story that is already changing lives, saving lives. So, folks, it's a privilege for me to welcome Laura Cohen.
Thank you.
Laura Cohen, welcome. And let me read your bio to folks. A former dietitian, and I'll explain former in a moment, and professional chef, Laura Cohen's second act was an impressive building of an incredibly successful business with a well-known health and wellness company. But in 2020, Laura's teenage daughter was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, shifting her priorities and refocusing her energies. She took a huge professional pivot, realizing that she was personally contributing to the enormous societal dilemma of diet culture. With a very hard gut check, she re-educated herself because she realized that her entire training and platform was, quite simply, as she put it, wrong. This third act required a 180-degree pivot and finds Laura today as a proud certified intuitive eating practitioner and a certified eating disorder recovery coach. Laura, we are so delighted that you are here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad that we finally got this together.
So happy that we've got it together and
Yes.
So happy to talk, well, one, about the incredible work that you're doing, but along with your incredible work is the arc of your story, the can't, the how, the why of what you've done, and your bravery is what I think our listeners and we three need to hear at Act 2 You're On.
Great. Yes. People always say, I can't believe you do what you do. And I say, I don't know. I just do what any other mother would do. That's just kind of how I feel.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you found your way to where you are today? Where were you in your career and what was the catalyst? What was the can't?
I professionally am trained as a dietitian, and I was a registered dietitian, got my master's in nutrition. My whole life was going to be about health and wellness, nutrition, the whole nine yards. When I had my kids, I left the workforce, wanted to be home with them, but for years was looking for something to do. And then, the wellness field always really intrigued me because that's all I knew from the time of 16 years on. And I fell into, well, I didn't really fall into, a friend of mine had asked me I learned about the field of network marketing. And I had been with some other companies before, build your own business from home, but they weren't successful. It was great, but it really wasn't me because, again, my background is nutrition. So when a friend approached me about a nutrition company and she was a dietitian as well, I told her no, because I'm a dietitian and I don't do those things, in quotes, air quotes that you guys can't see. And lo and behold, as I said, she was a dietitian too. I looked into the company and I felt like it was nutritionally sound. I liked a lot that they had to say. I used the products. I liked them. At that, time in my life, as we'll get into more, my background was my education and my professional background was very deep in diet culture. So I was always taught, to lose weight, if you're overweight or however you want to call overweight, losing weight makes you healthier. That's all I knew. That's what I was taught. That's what I was trained. And that's what the world tells us. So, I finally found this company that people were having great results. It was easy. I used the products. My husband lost a lot of weight. He looked great. We felt great, yada, yada, yada. I still was not interested in the business part of it, but took me a little while. And I actually was very impressed with the company. And it is a great company. I won't say anything bad about the company as itself and its leadership and all of that. And I really enjoyed it. And lo and behold, as Kate knows, and she's watched my journey, I was very successful.
Very successful.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had successful. To just chime in there.
That's okay.
Because you're being humble. Very successful.
Yeah, I mean, I had a nice business. I had a nice income, an income that I could have never in a million years made by being a stay-at-home mom, even in my prior career. And I really liked the community I was in. I loved the professional development that I gained from it. It definitely made a lot of who you see today. I will absolutely give all that credit to that part of my journey. But I was in the company for, I guess at that point would have been about 8 years. I was definitely itchy. It was a long time and, had been thinking about different things, but, you get the golden handcuffs and it's always going to get better and blah, 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 blah. And it was my community. I built this business with my best friends. And how do you walk away from that? Long story short, COVID hit and my younger daughter, I have 2 girls. My younger daughter was struggling emotionally, didn't really know what was going on, wound up that we finally realized she was struggling with an eating disorder. And as somebody whose entire life had been built around health and wellness and I was never one, even when I was with the company, I was always the one saying it's not a quick fix. We don't do diets. We eat what we want. I mean, that's always been my mission. And that's how I spoke at home. And I was proud of how I raised my kids, or so I thought. When she finally, told me what was going on, I remember the first thing saying, oh, geez, this is going to be a long road. Like I knew enough to know that this wasn't good. This was right at lockdown. So it was tough. It was hard to get to a doctor. No one was seeing anyone virtually at this point. I mean, this was April of 2020. I did what every mother does is I, went on Facebook and I Googled because that's what you do. I mean, that's what we do anyway. And through that, I actually found a community on Facebook that really, really helped me. And, I put my dietitian hat on. I thought I knew what was going to happen. And everything I learned was nothing that I learned in school because I didn't work with eating disorders. And B, it's changed a lot since 1993 when I graduated college. So I remember this one woman who is a very big mentor for other moms. Her daughter had an eating disorder too. I remember her saying to me, Laura, you're going to have to forget everything you ever knew about nutrition. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And you know what? As the months went on, she was absolutely right. And that was a really hard pill to swallow. The way you cure an eating disorder is you feed your child. And you don't feed your child what you would think you feed your child. You don't look at the food groups and give them fruits and vegetables and look at, how much protein they're getting and put them on a paleo or a macro or a keto, whatever diet you want. No. You want to get as much food into your child as fast as possible with as many calories as possible. That's Pop-Tarts, that's heavy whipping cream, that's all the foods that I was told for years were not healthy. And it was really hard. Not to mention, I won't even get into the day-to-day how you do it, but I'm just giving the nutrition piece. And I remember a good friend of mine who's a dietitian said to me, you're going to ruin your child. She said, you have it, mind you, she didn't have daughters. She said to me, you're going to cure one problem and create another. And I'm like this, we're co-dietitians. And I'm like, what? And I was horrified. That one, I will never forget that. And, you're always second guessing yourself anyway. And then for one of your dear friends to say that to you, it was pretty bad. So anyway, so I kept my head down. I learned everything there was to know about eating disorders. So that was the first 6 months. I won't even get into eating disorders. That's a whole nother episode, but I wish them on nobody. It is one of the most horrifying diseases anyone could ever have. It's lonely. It's isolating. There's shame involved. I put a post up on Facebook today, and because my daughter just finished a big treatment last night, And I said, with eating disorders, you don't ring the bell at the end of your treatments. And someone got a little upset about that because I wasn't downplaying cancer treatment. I was just saying that, no one does a meal train. You do this in silence. You do this behind closed doors. Most people don't tell anybody what's happening. When your child is walking around. If you have the type of case that you're very skeletal and you look sick. I heard a mom talk yesterday. I burst out in tears because she said that her daughter was at senior prom and all the parents, they didn't know what was going on. We're looking at her like, what is wrong with your kid? And the shame and the disgust. And this is all, well, you're just trying to save your kid's life. So it's a brutal day-to-day disease that nobody really knows much about. When you know. That's what kind of me and my warrior moms, we always say. But kind of where the pivotal change happened was I had to start looking at myself in the mirror and I had to start seeing what I was doing. And for the first 6 months, I still stood my ground of, I'm in wellness. I don't believe in diets. Diets don't work. I've never talked that way. I'm going to stay true. But there was this little piece that was just uncomfortable and I couldn't figure it out. And anyone in the field, when I told them what I did, now I know what they were thinking. I didn't know quite then. They kind of just had this look on their face. And I was like, yeah, but you don't get it. No, I'm not one of those people, blah, blah. I didn't even know what diet culture was or like what that term was. Because to me, I was against that, what I was doing. So a couple months went by. It was that itching inside of like, something's not comfortable. It's really not comfortable. And I started to talk with, my dear friends who are my teammates. And I stepped away from the business a little bit, just saying I was overwhelmed with her, but it was more than that. One day I finally had to have the discussion that was really hard. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. This just, it doesn't align with me. And I need to step away. And there was a lot of things that were said and how I need to, protect the business, which I totally respect and understand. And I did, and I have, but it was really hard. That was even before I went into my next phase. Like this was just that itch inside of me that knew I was doing something. So I started educating myself, learning about different things. And I will plug this book and this woman for the rest of my life. I read a book called The Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison. I read that book. And I usually will read like nonfiction. And after like a chapter or two, something happens and I'm done. I literally couldn't put it down. I like had to call my therapist and be like, or it was actually my business coach is like, I need to have a conversation with you. Like there's all this stuff coming up, tears down my face as I'm reading it. My husband would come in and was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just need to talk to you. What I learned from that book was, because it was so succinctly in the book, and I can give her background if you need it, but everything that I ever learned, and it was interesting to read it because it was even the timeline of when I went to school, when I had my master's degree, who my professors were actually in the book, because I was at NYU and my professor was listed in the book because she was a big researcher in the same timeline that I was there. And it taught about how it was all wrong. And everything that I learned in school and everything I stood for professionally, because that's what I was taught, was wrong. And not only was it wrong, but then she had the science to back it up with the people I understood and the timeline and the people I trusted at, the different higher institutes that, this school of health and whatever. And it was, I literally felt like I was betrayed. I felt like, I don't want to use curse words on this show. I felt like an idiot. I felt like the town liar. And then I've got a daughter who's battling an eating disorder. And I'm like, oh my God, I contributed to that society. Like I contributed to diet culture, unbeknownst to me, because I thought I was doing the right thing. And I was part of it. And the more that I understood this, I keep going back to the science because I'm a science major. I'm science. I needed the evidence. I literally was sick to my stomach. I've just grown upon that. That's when I actually, is ironically, intuitive eating was started in 1995 or 96 was the first edition of the book, Intuitive Eating. I read it that year when I was a dietitian at Mass General Hospital. I remember sitting in my office and reading it and going, this makes so much sense. Well, lo and behold, 20 years later, as I'm going through this journey and I see Evelyn Tribole on Instagram, which cracks me up. And see, social media is good for something. It's good for a lot of stuff.
Right.
It is.
And I saw Evelyn Tribole and I'm like, wait, what? And I saw intuitive eating was making this whole big thing. And then I looked at her website and she had certifications to become an intuitive eating practitioner. And I was like, oh my God. Because if anyone had ever worked with me professionally, that's really what I always talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know it was a thing. Well, not only was it a thing, but everything, she was now in the same line that I had been learning about how this all was, can I say BS? Was all BS back then. It was very interesting because I look at her as my mentor 20 years ago, and there she was front and center again. So that was kind of the beginning of that transformation. More has happened since then, but that was kind of my pivot of, it was emotional and then it became professional. And then I was like, okay, now what am I going to do with this? Because I need a platform.
Yeah. The double whammy of what your darling child was going through, the devastation of that, but then that realization that you felt that you had contributed. I mean, we all feel that as parents, but then being a professional in that field, I mean, how did you stand upright? How did you just curl up and go in the closet and hide out for a while? How did you move past the utter devastation of it?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't. And that's what I was telling you ladies before the show. Someone accused me yesterday. Yesterday, she said to me, you contributed to your daughter's eating disorder. And this was another parent of eating disorder, and said, all of you guys in the business that you did, all of you contributed to all of our kids' eating disorders, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, wow. So
yeah,
not only do we have to deal with the fact that we're being bombarded by the diet culture and you're going through your own personal hell, but we're also living through this period of the call out culture. And boy, do we love to pass judgment. And it's so unhealthy, every aspect of it. And what I feel is so thrilling about where this conversation is going and what you're starting to do is it's very much countering that. It's coming at it with positivity and it's coming at it with science. But how brave, you have lost so much. But in the end, I think you know it because that's where you just radiate light and positivity. You know that you're on the right mission. I mean, it really feels that you are part of the trailblaze that's happening.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Kate, because one, you said to how do you curl up at night? I think when I walked away from diet culture, and I've been public about it to a point, I felt peace inside. And I remember talking to my business coach or life coach, whatever you want to call her, executive life coach. I remember her saying, well, how does this feel? And I go, I feel honest. Like I feel so aligned with myself. There was always a bit of discomfort the past 8 years. They always nagged me inside. Like there were certain things I wouldn't do with my business. Anyone who knew me knew that. And I just feel like I just am proud of, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I am proud of the message that I'm out there. And I feel like it's not even a guilt thing that I have to make up for what I did. It is what it is. That was the past. And I do believe in moving forward. And my past has taught me a lot, but I feel it just feels so right.
I'm struck by your authenticity, honestly, because you said, I'm still devastated. Like that is permission for all of us to say there is grief when bad things happen. And if we don't take the time to feel that fully, then I fear that it comes back to us. That's what the universe tends to do, right? So for you saying that, for our listeners to know that that's the real walk of being in the position you're in when you have a kid who is suffering and in pain, and the pivot you've done, not only professionally, but as a mom, that has involved this swirl of shifting. Many people could have read what you read, heard what you heard, but kept doing the same thing. So I really want to know, what was it for you that gave you the permission to take on a new mindset and do that hard thing of living the brave new step and journey that you've started?
It's a great question. I think the word that you said is a word that people describe me as, whether it's good or it's bad, is authentic. I am always authentic. I can't, if I believe in something, I won't shut up about it, but I'm honest about it. And I think it was that authenticity that just, I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I bless people that do it. That's great. That's their business, their life, their livelihood. It's awesome. I don't wrong anybody. I just know that for me, my family, not even my family, I mean, I had to do it. And it's, I still walk around feeling like I'm wiping the egg off my face. But I still, every day I still go, you know what? I'm just going to keep wiping it off. It's okay. It's my humility.
Yeah. It's that notion of, when you're going through hell, keep going, but you don't always get to leave the devastation behind. It might just have to come along with you. And
it's part of me.
It is. Yes. And it's part of your brave story. It's good for folks who are out there, maybe suffering through something similar or just wondering how to move forward and be brave. I guess it just takes, like you said, waking up the next day and moving forward.
Yeah. Yep. And I want to just acknowledge your authenticity as well. And I, my husband is a teacher. He teaches at a performing and visual arts school. And so, it's not all you or what you were saying or learning. You were definitely learning it, but they're getting it. They're getting that messaging from everywhere.
Everywhere.
And so many teenagers I have met through the years who have eating disorders and are getting that messaging from their peers, from everybody, from marketing, all that stuff. So, kudos to you for being brave and coming out and saying there's a different way to think about our bodies and about our health. And I think it's vitally, vitally, vitally important. I think all of us as parents have experienced, I know I raised boys and people tell you how you should raise boys. And I was allowing my little boys to hug me and snuggle up to me. And I had parents tell me I was going to turn them into, feminine, sissy, whatever. And so people have their, as Kate said, their opinions that they love to just put out on other people. So sorry that you had to go through that. Sorry that any of us mothers or fathers have to go through that. But thank you for what you're doing. Cause I think your work is really important and you are destined to lead us, be part of that leadership. So. Yeah, for sure.
I hope so. My daughter right behind me.
Yeah. And for those, listening, if you have people who are giving you unsolicited criticism, thanks, but no thanks. Or if I wanted your opinion, I would have asked you or given it to you.
Yeah. Or as another podcast guest we had says, that's not mine.
That's not mine.
That's not mine. Yeah. So I hate to say that this is like, I feel like I could talk to you forever. I resonate so much with what you're saying. Being somebody who's very interested in nutrition myself, not a registered dietitian, but I did do the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And there's a lot to know and a lot, the more you know, the more you don't know. That's how I've always felt, for sure. But it's time for our golden nugget. And I feel like we've already gotten like some major golden nuggets from you, just your heart, your spirit, your soul, and your authenticity. But do you have anything else that you would like to tell our viewers and listeners, about what they might need to know for their next successful, great act? About really, I think even in our next successful, great act, part of it is how we think about our bodies and our health too. Like it's not just about what we're doing business-wise, it's what we're doing personally. So whatever, you have both to offer. So is there anything else that you would like to?
Yeah, I can speak to both of those. Interesting. It just right when you said it popped into my head. So last night was my daughter's last night in her intensive outpatient, she was outpatient nutrition, eating disorder program. And along with that, the parents, if you choose to, which you should, they kind of make you, but it's good, have support groups. And, I was very, what's the word? Into them, I spoke a lot, I utilized them a lot. And so the last night, if anyone is leaving, they have the parents say something. And it's interesting that my advice that I gave about parenting a child with an eating disorder, as well as what I'm going to give an entrepreneur, a budding entrepreneur, whatever it may be, or just a parent, is kind of the same advice. What I learned on this journey is it's okay to feel the discomfort and the distress. Like that feelings, distress, they're going to pass. It's okay to sit with it. But when your gut tells you something's wrong or right, double check that, make sure it's not just distress, because it could very well be confused. Double check your gut. And if your gut tells you one way or another, follow that gut, but learn to sit with the distress because it passes. So that was that part.
That's really good. That is so good.
With parenting, I mean, it had to do with parenting, but I think it's with anything in life.
Universal.
I agree. That's been hard through this journey, is sitting through the distress, because you want to fix it.
Thank you, Laura, for that. Sit with what's uncomfortable, but tell us what else is burning for you. Yeah.
The nutrition piece. I built a beautiful community on Facebook as my first endeavor that kind of just happened authentically, back to that word, naturally just happened. And in that community, I really show people what diet culture does. And it's opened so many people's eyes to it. And I think I keep saying your viewers, but they're listeners, as your listeners, viewers, whoever.
Viewers, listeners,
whoever wants to listen,
our
watch.
peeps.
Yeah.
Your peeps. Be aware, because diet culture is insidious. It's everywhere. And you cannot unsee what you see. And one of my biggest goals is to have people open their eyes to it, because I was in the industry and I did not see it. I 100% believed I was doing absolutely nothing wrong. And wrong or not wrong doesn't matter. But I would just share with people to really think about everything you read, every label, every show, I can't even watch a TV show without hearing comments about people's bodies, their shape, what they eat. The funniest show, the saddest show, it's all in there. Nobody realizes it when they say it. That needs to stop.
Very powerful. And to know better, we can do better, right? Isn't that?
That's my quote of the year. You only know what you know. And when you know, you do better.
Exactly. And you're helping us know better. So thank you for this conversation. We're going to be coming to a close, but you mentioned a Facebook group. What else might be next for you, Laura?
So I have a Facebook community called the No Way Way. It's a private community, but
which
you can.
I'm a part of.
Yes, Kate is a part of it.
It's been awesome. Sorry, I'm interrupting our guest.
That's okay.
It's terrible. I so appreciate it. I think it's edifying, but it's also been this place where people can come with these giant feelings. Yeah. Some of what folks are going through, it's just gutting, but it's so important that they have
a safe space to
go. It is community. I know.
Someone sent me a message and said it's their safe space away from diet culture.
Yeah.
Is that little group. So I have that. So anybody, can send a request into that. I keep a tight rein on it to make sure that it's the right people in the group. In terms of what's next for me, everything was put a little bit on hold because my daughter had a slight backtrack, and I am in I'm almost done getting my, my eating disorder recovery coach certification. I'm actually just in my last stages of my supervision with that. My hope and goal is to take all of this, and I love helping families and parents. I mean, I do it right now for free. People reach out to me all the time, and it's the scariest thing. And to have someone hold your hand and help you through it. So it may be that I'm going to work. I will be working with parents at some point. One of my big loves is all women our age who have been in disordered eating their entire life, and they're ready to admit that and move on. That will be something that I will pursue in some way. I've got a million ideas, but as I said, it was put on hold. So hopefully both kids will be in college next year. And right now I'm taking time to get my daughter as healthy as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, wonderful. I'm sure that you are doing amazing things with her, and for all of us, there's no doubt you're bringing it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yes. And thank you for having me on. I hope this helps somebody.
Well, it's an important voice. We've talked about this insidious diet culture, but also the cancel culture, and the fact that we are living through a period where we cannot tolerate discomfort. And these are they're all interconnected, but I think you are doing important work. You're saying things that are actually uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to hear the things that you're talking about, but it is so important. In fact, I think about how important your voice is, how brave you are. And I think, this might be a podcast. And we know how to do that. That's partly what we do. So maybe we can help you on that journey as well. But anything we can do as your vision is taking shape, absolutely count on us to be allies. We need to learn from you, but we also need to spread the word. So, so valuable, so brave. Laura Cohen, you're a special human being. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah,
Thanks, Laura.
Definitely have already lots of ideas of people I want to send to you. I really do.
And so I think it's left to me to say, friends, go forth, be brave like Laura Cohen, live well and do good, because it's Act 2. You're on.
Act 2 You're On was brought to you by Act 2 Share Our Stage. You can find us at a2yo.com and also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please listen and subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. You can support us using Patreon. Thanks for listening.